During World War II, the Allies came up with a plan to defeat Hitler with estrogen. I swear I'm not making this up. There was an actual top secret plan to slip female hormones into his food, hoping he'd become less aggressive, and maybe too emotional to lead a war. This was one of the weirdest and wildest schemes of World War II, and honestly, it's somehow not even the dumbest one. Today on the Dumbfounded podcast, the bizarre plot to emasculate the Third Reich. Hello and welcome to the Dumbfounded podcast, where I dig up the weirdest, wildest, and straight up dumbest moments in history. Because apparently, stupidity isn't just a modern thing. I'm Thomas Collins, and every month I try to prove that the past was just as ridiculous as the present. So with that, let's get dumbfounded. Now, I was not able to find out the actual dates of the plan itself, but it seems to have come about sometime in 1942. So here's a brief recap of World War II during that time. The Axis powers are at peak strength, and Germany controlled most of Europe. Japan had expanded across the Pacific, including the Philippines and parts of Indonesia. Now into June of 1942, we see the Battle of Midway. This is a huge U.S. naval victory against Japan, and it crippled the Japanese aircraft carriers and really shifted the balance in the Pacific. August of 1942, Stalingrad begins. Germany launches a brutal attack on the Soviet city of Stalingrad, and it turned into one of the bloodiest battles in history. 1942 was also midway through the North Africa campaign, where British and Allied forces under General Montgomery began pushing back against the Desert Fox Rommel. So, things are getting better, but they're still not great. Enter the OSS, or the Office of Strategic Services. The U.S. had no central intelligence agency at the start of World War II. President Franklin D. Roosevelt realized that America needed better coordination for spying, sabotage, propaganda, and analysis of enemy plans. The OSS was created to fill that role. It was founded in June of 1942 by General William Wild Bill Donovan, who was a charismatic and daring World War I hero. Its mission? Gather intelligence behind enemy lines, especially Europe, Asia, and North Africa. Run sabotage operations, like blowing up bridges, railroads, and factories. Support resistance movements, like the French Resistance, spread propaganda to weaken enemy morale, and analyze enemy strategies and brief American commanders. Highlighting a few of its major operations, they helped organize and arm partisan groups in Nazi-occupied Europe. They conducted undercover missions in China and Southeast Asia. They intercepted and decoded several enemy communications. And the one we're going to talk about today is brainstorming wild psychological warfare schemes, like the plan to feminize Hitler. So, why was this plan pitched? Nazism was deeply invested in traditional gender roles. It believed in strong, dominant, virile men and nurturing domestic women. So attacking Hitler through gender was a way of attacking Nazi ideology itself. Feminizing Hitler equaled symbolically flipping Nazi gender norms. This also played into Western anxieties and stereotypes, seeing the enemy as other, deviant, or even perverse. Now, this is messy by today's standards, but you gotta remember, it was 1942 and being feminine was often used as an insult. Stanley Lovell, the head of the OSS's Research and Development Branch, theorized that Hitler exhibited traits placing him near the male-female line on the gender spectrum. Lovell proposed that administering female sex hormones, such as estrogen, could push Hitler further toward femininity, potentially reducing his aggression and destabilizing his control over Nazi Germany. The plan involved covertly introducing estrogen into Hitler's diet, exploiting his known preference for vegetarian meals and particularly carrots. Due to estrogen's tasteless and slow-acting nature, it was considered ideal for clandestine administration without immediate detection. One proposed method was to bribe Hitler's gardener to inject estrogen into his vegetables. The details of this plot were uncovered by Professor Brian Ford of Cardiff University, while researching declassified documents for his book, Secret Weapons, Technology, Science, and the Race to Win World War II. Ford highlighted the Allies' interest in using hormonal therapy as a means of psychological warfare was only one of the many unconventional tactics considered during the war. Historians note that it falls under a category of black ops brainstorming, similar to other crazy OSS plans like glue bombs, exploding fruit tins, or even LSD aerosols. It's also important to note that while the plan to actually feminize Hitler may have never actually gained any traction, they did feminize him on paper. Allied propaganda often mocked Hitler's masculinity to delegitimize his authority and make him seem weak, absurd, or unmanly. Cartoons and posters depicted Hitler as fussy or petulant, childlike, or even effeminate. They showed him screaming tantrums, exaggerated gestures, or even dainty walks. British and American satire sometimes used drag or falsetto voices, or made Hitler the butt of the joke in ways that intentionally emasculated him. So, was this plan real? Here's what we know for sure. The claim comes primarily from Professor Brian Ford, who discussed it in interviews and in his book. Ford said the OSS floated the idea as a part of their wild psychological warfare efforts. The idea was to use female sex hormones to calm Hitler down, possibly feminize him, and reduce his aggressiveness or authority. The proposed delivery method was via his food, possibly using his gardener as an agent to inject estrogen into his vegetables. The justification reportedly came from Stanley Lovell, head of the research for OSS, who explored various bizarre psychological tactics during the war. So what is not documented? There are no known declassified documents directly outlining this as an officially approved or resourced operation. There is no evidence that any steps were taken towards implementing the plan. So where do we stand? While there's no proof the Allies ever seriously moved forward with the plot to feminize Hitler using estrogen, it was one of several bizarre psychological warfare ideas considered during the war, and an example of just how strange things got in the fight to take down the Third Reich. Well, that wraps up another episode of the Dumbfounded podcast, where history proves that being dumb is absolutely timeless. If you laughed, learned something, or just feel slightly smarter by comparison, do me a solid and follow the show. Leave us a review. It really helps history nerds find me. And honestly, I crave the validation. If you have an idea for a show topic, please leave it in the comments. Until next time, guys, stay dumbfounded.